Welcome to Mark My Words on AM 560 The Answer. I am your host, Mark Vargas, and we have a jam-packed show today. When I say jam-packed, I mean we have a jam-packed. We're going to talk about the Appellate Court knocking Governor Pritzker down with his mask mandate in schools. We've got attorney Pat Walsh joining us on the line because we don't want to miss any more time to discuss this. So joining me on the line is the founder of Griffin, Williams, McMahon, and Walsh, attorney Pat Walsh. Pat, welcome to Mark My Words. How are you?
Very well, Mark. How are you?
I'm doing great. And listen, there's, so many updates. But, Pat, I'm going to start out with this. In legal terms, I think this is probably a big deal. But in line 1 of the Appellate Court's order, it says appeal is dismissed as moot. And in legalese, that's probably significant that they started off this entire document this way, correct?
It is. And because there has to be a current controversy for the Appellate Court to take action. And there are a few exceptions to that, which are discussed in the opinion. But effectively, the Appellate Court found that because the Joint Committee on Administrative Rules had declined to reissue the Illinois Department of Public Health's emergency orders on quarantines, that there was no longer a controversy and that, the governor was without authority on his own to require masking of kids. So the mootness, that was very important. I mean, that's the whole key of the opinion. So, as of right now, there is no controversy.
Pat, and I can only imagine, the hundreds, if not thousands, of requests that you've had from parents all over the place. But I've had the consistent messaging, and maybe you can kind of help me with this consistent messaging that I'm getting from parents and families whose districts are still are still rebelling, so to speak, and they're still honoring the governor's mask mandate. And the appellate court just kicked this back down to the schools and said, basically, it's your decision. And they're just kind of left saying, what now? Our districts are saying we're still going to require masks. They kicked it. That's our decision, and this will hold. What's your input or thoughts on that?
Sure. The appellate court opinion noted that the temporary restraining order issued by Judge Grishow did not restrain the authority of the local districts. But the key, and if there are parents listening or students listening, the local districts never had any authority to mask or quarantine or require vaccinations. That authority rests solely with the Illinois Department of Public Health and always has. The Illinois Department of Public Health Act says that the Illinois Department of Public Health is the supreme authority on what's called quarantining, which would include masking and exclusions from school and vaccinations. And, when the legislature gives authority to an administrative agency, that agency can't just transfer its powers to another agency. That's the job of the legislature. So the Illinois Department of Public Health can't transfer the power to quarantine students to the Illinois State Board of Education or any local school districts. So, in my view, local school districts have absolutely no authority to order masking or quarantining or vaccinations or anything of the like.
Yeah, and so for those schools, I know there was a big victory just recently, just a few days ago in Cary District 26, but they're still out there. And so parents, what legal course can they file a suit in terms of civil rights violations for denying their child due process? Is that an option that's left for those unruly schools that remain?
There may be. I mean, my office is preparing some more emergency motions for temporary restraining orders against these districts that are refusing to, read these orders and to read the Illinois Department of Public Health Act carefully. It's a little bit scary because, these educators are supposed to be teaching, reading comprehension. And, it's not being done at the administrative level in some of these districts.
No.
So, yeah.
No, and so do you have any other updates? And I think you may have about some masking or some other thoughts on this, Pat, that's developed over the last few days.
Sure. Well, one big one is on February 25th. We've got, and other attorneys in the state are moving to join thousands of additional plaintiffs into the Springfield case where Judge Grishow ordered the TRO. And on that same date, Pedro Martinez, the superintendent of Chicago Public Schools, has to appear in person to answer a contempt proceeding because the Chicago Public Schools allegedly refused to follow Judge Grishow's order. Mr. Martinez filed a response or a request to not appear in person through counsel, and Judge Grishow declined that request. So he's got to be there on the 25th to answer to her. And I think it may be somewhat uncomfortable because he's referred to her as a downstate judge and some other terms that may be less than complimentary from his point of view. So that should be an interesting hearing.
It was probably too dangerous for him. Safe enough to go on vacation, right, for over the holidays, but too dangerous to travel down to before Judge Grishow. Well,
right, the mean streets of Springfield, right?
That's right. Well, those dates will pay particularly close attention. Again, so I guess the parents are really just going to have to kind of wait this out. But I think, Pat, what's interesting is at the end of the day, this shows the power of the school board.
Oh, the power of the school board, certainly, and the power of the parents. I mean, the school board is, school boards that are doing the right thing are having a really positive impact on families, and the ones that aren't are, causing a lot of problems, a lot of legal fees and, a lot of unnecessary legal proceedings. But the power of the parents we see, Judge Grishow's case had about 170 districts as defendants, but now we're up to 107. Well, of those 170, they were barred from enforcing these mandates, but now we're up to 700, I think a little over 700 districts in Illinois out of 852 that have now gone mask optional. So, hundreds and hundreds of districts have declined to follow the mandates voluntarily. So I think, through the grassroots parents movements, they've really had an impact on school administrators and school boards.
They sure have. Joining us on the line is attorney Pat Walsh. Pat, for some of those parents, how do they reach out to? Can they reach out to me for more questions? Because I don't necessarily want to direct them over to you either, because I know your office is getting slammed. But if they'd like to join in on any of these lawsuits, how do they do that?
Sure. They can get our contact information from our website, which is gwmwlaw.com. So gwmwlaw.com. And we would be happy to accommodate as many as we can.
Fantastic. And I'll continue to push that as well, Pat. The governor's talked about that he's going to go to the state Supreme Court. Your thoughts on that?
Mm-hmm. Well, it's going to take time. The indoor mask mandate is for everyone but school kids is set to expire on February 28th. Certainly the Illinois Supreme Court would not rule on any motions the governor may file before then. So we'll have the kids, being required to keep those masks on while, adults fight in court. And really, I think what the governor's doing, he just wants to get an opinion on the extent of his power. I don't think anyone could say it relates to health any longer, because if you're ending the mask mandates for all adults, it's hard to argue that there remains an emergency for kids. So it's, to me, it's as a parent, it's shameful that the kids have to continue to wear masks just so, we adults can fight in court about it. I wish that, we could continue, get an answer without these kids being impacted in the way that they are.
I agree. And Pat, I'd love to have you back on the show as often as necessary for you to provide critical updates, because this battle is only continuing, but I feel like we are winning. As you mentioned, over 700 school districts have gone mask optional. JCAR, that was a big deal. Republicans and Democrats. I'd like to find out who the two that voted present are.
I can't recall the names.
I mean, as an issue that's this important and you want to vote present.
Yep.
Unbelievable.
I think sometimes people have bigger aspirations, vote present.
Yeah.
So there's not a record to use later. I mean, I can't say that about these two, in this case, but who knows if that's a motivation.
That's right. Well, Pat Walsh, thank you for joining me here on Mark My Words. Incredible information, and we hope to have you back on soon.
Thank you, Mark. I appreciate the opportunity.
Oh, you're welcome.